There is a reason that the Pittsburgh Steelers are who the Pittsburgh Steelers are and have been for so long. And every day I get to experience a little bit more of that. And I'm excited. It feels like a purpose for me to come on here and be able to talk to you guys about what I learn about what makes the Pittsburgh Steelers amazing. And every day I get a new glimpse at that. And every day I hear stories about why that's different than everywhere else in the NFL. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/all Steelers talk or anywhere you get your podcasts. And today I am going to tell you guys why the Pittsburgh Steelers are so different from every other organization. So it starts here. Yesterday, I was given a sneak preview of the new Hall of Honor museum that the Steelers are revealing today, actually, and that will be open to the fans and everybody can go in and experience what the Steelers have done over time, the last 100 years of greatness. And it was awesome to see, but there was bits and pieces of it that were more awesome. And there were stories that I heard before and after that made it even better. And that's not even where this is going. That's not why I decided to do this. I did leave the Hall of Honor Museum with a sense of gratitude that I do get to cover this team and that I do get to be part of an organization, essentially, even if I'm not part of it, to watch it, to observe it, to write on it, and to share my experiences with you guys about an organization that I believe is top class. And that every time I hear more and more about them, I realize how top class they are. And then there's instances like everything that's happening in Washington where more stories come out and you realize the Steelers are one of their own, man. There's a reason this team is so beloved by everybody and that they have such long-standing success and why they do things like have only had 3 head coaches in the last 50 years. There are reasons for this. It's because the Steelers are in a class of their own, like I continue to say. And there are stories. There are lots and lots of stories. And I think that we should start with the Washington Commanders and everything that's happening there and what the difference is between the Steelers and the Commanders. So I don't know what it's like in other NFL organizations. I've never covered another NFL team. I've only been around the Steelers when it comes to the NFL. And I just thought that everybody was the same. And by that, I mean, I thought everybody was as cool as Art Rooney was. Art Rooney is one of the best people I've ever met. He's always willing to talk to you. He's always willing to shake your hand and have a conversation. He will never, ever walk by you without asking you how you are doing. I don't know if he even knows my name, but I feel as if he does. I feel as if he knows everything about me because he talks to me as if he does. Every single time I see him for the last 4 years, he asks me how I'm doing, how's everything, how's the city, how's work, every time. And I say, I'm good. Everything's good, man. You know, I let him know that I got engaged and he said, he gave me a huge congratulations. He shook my hand. I let him know when I moved and, he asked where and he told me how great Highland Park is. And he's just a top class guy. He always has been. I've always raved about what Art Rooney brings to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I tell everybody, I grew up a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but obviously that has to go away when you get this job. When you start to do what I do, you're not allowed to be a fan as much as you'd like to be. You could still root for players, but that's it. You root more for players than you do for teams. But Art Rooney's a guy that I always root for because I like genuinely good people. And Art Rooney is as genuinely good as they come. And I don't know why this isn't everywhere else, but it isn't. And I've learned that more and more. Obviously, there are the stories of Dan Snyder that are all over the news for the last couple of years. And the man just seems like a horrible human. He seems like the bottom of the barrel, not somebody I'd want to be around, not somebody I'd want to be a part of, not somebody I'd want to play for, and certainly not somebody I'd like to cover. I enjoy that the drama that I have to bring to people is about running backs and quarterbacks and offensive coordinators. and not about sexual harassment. I enjoy that. I would not like it to be the other way around. As as bad of a rap as the media gets, nobody's sitting around going, "Man, I really hope that today somebody does something really, really wrong to somebody and I have to talk about it." Nobody wants to do that. It's part of our job to talk about the bad, and nobody's going to believe me when I say this because, that's the narrative of the media. I understand it. I knew that coming into the gig. I've always known that. But nobody's sitting around wanting to talk about the bad. It's so much more fun when a team is winning and you get to talk about all the goodness that comes with this team. Most fun I've ever had covering an NFL team was watching the Steelers go 11-0 and getting to talk to those guys every day and seeing the smiles on everybody's faces, and everybody was willing to talk, and it was such fun. It was so much fun. Nobody wants to talk when you're losing, and that's understandable because nobody wants to write about anything when you're losing. I said that the other day. We were standing in the locker room. I didn't talk to anybody. You want to know why? Because I don't have anything to talk about. We have talked about the bad and we have run it into the ground. Now the Steelers need to have some good so that we could talk about the good. But that's not where I'm going with this. Where I'm going with this is the difference between the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, Art Rooney, and the rest of them. So obviously everybody knows what's happening in Washington. Dan Snyder has been under investigations. Now the district attorney or the attorney general of DC has filed claims against Washington for all this financial stuff and for a bad workplace environment, saying that they've hid everything. They've brought in the NFL into it, saying that they've colluded with them and that they've hid everything as well. And it's really hard to sit back and say that you don't believe it. Like, at this point, you're just going, yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And chances are the NFL was involved in this. And everything bad that everybody is saying is probably true because I've heard it's true. I've heard it's all true. I've heard stories and stories and stories about how bad that place is and how hard they've worked to hide everything. And it's all slowly starting to come out. But again, that's not where I'm going. Where I'm going is as small and as simple as it gets. When talking about this, when talking about the Washington Commanders and Dan Snyder, I was told a story about how Dan Snyder would walk through and have a team of security push everybody up against the wall. You'd have to get up against the wall if he was walking through so that he could walk right down the middle of the hallway on game days or anywhere else. He'd get in the elevator with his security team and they would leave, and that was it. There was nothing you could do about it. He was on the elevator by himself. That's how he traveled. That's how he worked. Everybody else was a second class citizen compared to Dan Snyder, who is worth billions of dollars. And, when you're in a certain tax bracket, I mean, I feel that in a locker room. I talk to guys sometimes and I walk away and I'm like, yeah, I do okay. I live a very comfortable life. I enjoy my life, but I know that I'm not making millions of dollars like these guys. I know that I don't get paid to play football, and I'm not in the same tax bracket as a guy like TJ Watt. And I don't know how long it's going to be until I am, if I ever will be. But you have that sense of, oh, I get that you're much higher than me. You're much higher on the scale of humans, of how we grade people. You are a lot higher on that list than I. But nobody treats you like that. Nobody looks down at you. Everybody has respect for everybody. Everybody gets what we're in there to do. There's some people who don't get it, but those people aren't people that last in the NFL. Nobody that's making a fuss of the media in the locker room are people that are successful NFL players. They're like good special teams guys sometimes, but most of the time it's just somebody that, you're just waiting to get cut because that's just who they are. They're just an obnoxious human who doesn't get the attention, and they don't understand our job because they don't want to understand our job. And chances are that's why they're not as successful as they'd like to be, because they don't understand other people's views on things or other people's stance in a situation. But the big guys, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka Fitzpatrick, Ben Roethlisberger for a long time, those guys never look down on anybody. They just talk to you with a lot of respect. And I think that comes in every locker room. But Dan Snyder pushed you up against a wall and made sure that he walked by you. And the first time I heard that, I went, what? That's crazy to me. I've never even seen Art Rooney with a security guard. He's got 2 guys that walk with him on game days every single week. I know them. I talk to them. They're good guys. One of them's Omar Khan. It's nothing crazy. There's no big security team. Nobody's ever getting shoved up against the wall. In fact, it's the complete opposite. And then I heard other stories. I heard stories about how that's the same way in Cincinnati, and that's the same way in Cleveland. How maybe it's not as drastic as getting pushed up against the wall, but it's certainly you are not allowed to ride in an elevator with these people. You are not allowed to be in the same room as these people. These people travel in bunches, and you are not part of that bunch. That bunch is a security team. And what blows my mind, what's crazy about that to me, is that every single Sunday at some point during the day, I'm in an elevator with Art Rooney at some point, and we're just talking. I don't stalk him on there. He doesn't stalk me on there. We just casually get in the elevator together. We've just so happened to be standing in line at the same time. Most of the time, at the end of a game, there is a huge line of media and personnel trying to get onto an elevator to get down to the locker room or to leave the stadium. The elevator stops at other floors, like floors where fans are sitting in suites and stuff. Art Rooney doesn't cut the line. When people try to make him cut the line, half the time he's like, "I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna let everybody go." And then if they stop and let fans in, he doesn't say a word. He just stands in the back and then he talks to the fans in the elevator. And to me, that's just what NFL owners did. I just thought that that's how they were. And then I hear all these stories about how that's not how they are. And I'm like, wow, I never would have imagined. I always knew Art Rooney was better than most people, but I never knew that he was this. I mean, man, dude, Art Rooney was in elevators with people during COVID, during fans. Fans were in the elevator with me and Art Rooney during COVID, and I was freaking out. I'm like, this is a 70-plus-year-old man in the middle of COVID. You're hammered. There's no way you've kept your mask on all game. But he didn't care. He never cares. He rides his stationary bike during practice, and he talks to the media, and he talks to the old players, and he talks to everybody that walks by. He makes sure that he calls people. We went through the Hall of Fame tour or the Hall of Honor tour, and he called retired media members that have been around the team for so long and said, "Hey, make sure that you're here. We want to make sure that you get a glimpse at this too. You're a part of this team's history." Like, that's awesome. It was so nice to show up there yesterday and see names like Jim Colony and Ed Bouchette show up to talk about it with like Greg Wolfe. It was so nice to see all this and to realize that this is a family. It's a part of a family. Everybody's got their own positions in this family and everybody's got to do their jobs. We get it. But there's a sense of family. I'm not saying everybody within the organization is a family. I'm not saying everybody within the organization treats you like a family. There are certainly people who don't. But Art Rooney is not one of them. Art Rooney is a different breed, man. And the more and more I hear about these other organizations and the more and more of these stuff comes out about the Washington Commanders or I visit things like the Hall of Honor, which I highly recommend everybody go and do, the more I realize, wow, this is a blessing to be in Pittsburgh and to be able to cover the Pittsburgh Steelers because most people don't get that opportunity. Most people don't even realize what they're missing. I somehow got to do it first. I got to start my career in the place that I hope I end my career. In a place where I consider, home, in a place where everybody treats you with respect, and in a place where the top of the line, the top of the totem pole shows everybody respect. The top of the totem pole makes sure everybody feels loved and cared about and respected. And apparently that doesn't happen in most places. And you could kind of see why Steelers fans are Steelers fans. I felt that growing up. Everybody told me about that growing up. Art Rooney he's a first class type of guy. My dad used to say that all the time. Art Rooney, Art Rooney is a first class type of guy. Breed of his own. And I was always just like, yeah, man, you have no idea. Whatever. But now that I'm here, now that I experience it, I don't know how he knew. But he was dead on every time. Just wanted to say that. Just wanted to share that. 15 minutes of why the Pittsburgh Steelers bring so much gratitude to everybody, including the media, because they're in a class of their own, man. And why every other team is starting to crumble just a little bit here and there, with the Washington Commanders being the spotlight of it all. There's no part of me that thinks that the Pittsburgh Steelers will ever crumble because their ownership is as good as it gets. And they are as good of people as there are on this earth.